On the past this week, we're featuring some of my favorite things: Vikings, a spy, a lover, the best food ever, and the worst movie ever made. On July 22nd, 1959, Plan 9 from outer space was unleashed on the universe. Plan 9 is a science fiction horror B-movie created by Ed Wood, who was known for having big ideas and a small budget. His films are campy and noted for their amateur special effects. Even so, many people believe Plan 9 from outer space, which is about aliens trying to stop humans from creating a doomsday weapon, falls into the so bad it's good category, despite its earning 2 Golden Turkey Awards for Worst Movie and Worst Director. Tim Burton made a film of Wood's life starring Johnny Depp. It also won 2 awards, though those were Oscars. Science fiction B-movies about out-of-control scientists made to show at drive-in theaters were popular in the post-war period of the 1950s as people grappled with the reality of the atomic bomb. On July 23, 1829, William Burt got a patent for his typographer, a predecessor of the typewriter. Burt was a distinguished surveyor, an important trade in the early days of the U.S., and he was a distinguished inventor, inventing a successful solar compass, an equatorial sextant, and his typographer, which he invented to speed up the secretarial work in his surveying office. It typed clearly and printed both lower and uppercase letters, but unfortunately it was slower than the proverbial molasses in January, much slower than a person with a pen. It did lay the foundation, though, for the eventual invention of a practical typewriter by Christopher Latham Scholes in 1867. Spy or scapegoat, you decide. On July 24, 1917, the trial of Mata Hari began. Her name is in the dictionary, a dubious honor perhaps, but one that few can claim. Mata Hari has become a synonym for espionage, a metaphor for the beautiful spy who coaxes secrets from her lovers. Born Margarita Zella in the Netherlands, she lived for a time in Indonesia, which was then known as the Dutch East Indies, then moved to Paris and used the language and culture she had learned in the Indies to begin a career as an exotic dancer. She changed her name to Mata Hari, which means Eye of the Day, and became the toast of Paris. By the time World War I broke out in Europe, Mata Hari had reached middle age. She eagerly accepted a lucrative offer to spy for France. Unfortunately for her, one of her contacts in the German High Command identified her as a spy. She was accused by the French of being a double agent, was tried, found guilty, and faced the firing squad, where it is said she walked to her spot, waved away the blindfold, and blew the soldiers a kiss. Time to go medieval, all the way back to July 25th, 864, when Charles the Bald set forth the Edict of Petrus. Grandson of the legendary Charlemagne, Charles the Bald was the king of West Francia, which is more or less what we call France. He also has the second best king name of all time, behind Ethelred the Unready, who is not in this story. Anyway, an edict is an official order, and the goal of this one was to protect West Francia from Viking raids. Charles the Bald was tired of the Vikings coming up the rivers in their longboats, which were cleverly designed to navigate shallow water, and raiding the interior of his country. Furthermore, he had probably heard that across the Channel on the British Isles, the Vikings were setting up house in the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. The thought of invasion was making King Charles lose his hair. The Edict of Petrus declared that fortified bridges should be built at all towns on the river to stop the longboats. Among other things, it also created a large cavalry that could be called upon to stop the Vikings from getting away with their plunder. This cavalry represents the beginning of French chivalry, which led to Camelot, but that's not in this story either. Another person whose name is in the dictionary is Casanova, who on July 26, 1755, was arrested in Venice. Casanova was an Italian adventurer and writer, a friend of royalty, popes, and artists like Voltaire and Mozart. His autobiography is regarded as an important source of 18th century life, but he's mostly known as a lover. Like the legendary Don Juan, Casanova's name is synonymous with libertine. He was 30 years old when he was arrested for violating religious and common decency and thrown into prison on the top floor of the Doge of Venice's palace. Apparently, they hadn't heard of habeas corpus in Venice in 1755 because Casanova was sentenced to 5 years without benefit of trial and without knowing what the reason was. But he managed a thrilling escape involving an iron bar, a chair, an overflowing plate of pasta, and a renegade priest. He made his escape in heavy fog, across the roof of the Doge's palace and into a waiting gondola, where he sailed down the canal to freedom. When he reached Paris, he wrote the stirring bestseller Story of My Flight, which probably exaggerates his escapades and certainly adds to his legend. Cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health. It seems as if the warning has been around forever, but it wasn't until July 27, 1965, that President Lyndon Johnson, who was himself a smoker, put warning labels on cigarette packaging in America. Between the 1920s and 1960, over 7,000 studies were published establishing a link between smoking and health problems. Finally, during the Johnson administration, Surgeon General William Stewart led an advisory committee that concluded cigarette smoking is a health hazard of sufficient importance in the United States to warrant appropriate remedial action. The congressional act signed by LBJ only required warning labels on cigarette packages, but later legislation expanded the act to include warnings in advertising. We're ending the week with one of my favorite foods. On July 28, 1586, Sir Thomas Hariot brought potatoes to the British Isles, we think. Hariot was a mathematician and astronomer. As an employee of Sir Walter Raleigh, he joined the 1585 expedition to Raleigh's Roanoke Island colony before it was lost. Many say Hariot brought potatoes home to England with him, though the honor might belong to Sir Francis Drake. But whoever introduced them, it's certain that the lowly tuber changed northern Europe. Though at first people thought they were poisonous, calling them devil's apples because they grew underground, potatoes thrived in the colder climate of the north. Some historians believe the potato was the linchpin in ending famine in northern Europe, which led to the rise of the West and the Industrial Revolution. A weight of responsibility for the lowly but delicious tater. Thanks for listening. Please give this episode a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel.